This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Live tonight for the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to LSR TV's continuing coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. So happy that you're joining us tonight on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. As always, alongside myself, Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince, and our producer, Randy Cheneth, with you tonight from the Sunshine State as we get set for the third week of this RSR winter campaign. Justin, happy to be back as always. 2 races down and 2 different winners coming off of Atlanta last Monday night, where the defending Cup and Winter Series champion Frinaj found victory lane for the first time.
Indeed, and it's going to be a similar type of track than that tonight, because tire management very crucial at a track such as Homestead Miami Speedway, but the main differences compared to a track like Atlanta, multiple different racing lines, the ability for passing. It's going to be a very active race tonight for many of these drivers here at Homestead Miami Speedway.
And of course, it is still very young into this 10-race campaign, but courtesy of that race win, we now have a tie at the top of the championship, and we really harped on this post-race at Atlanta that the Andrew Fridas, Nick Holslander, and Malik Ray trio has occupied all 3 spots of the top 3 both weeks thus far. Malik Ray has 2 second-place finishes, and both Holslander and Fridas now have a win and a P3 apiece, and they've all got the same amount of bonus points. So coming into this evening, Fridas and Holslander are tied for the championship lead, 74 points each. Malik Ray only 2 points further back by them with 72. But then, Justin, it is a big jump to Sam Nietos, who's had a great start to his campaign. The problem is 53 points puts him already 21 behind, just given that incredible start by your top 3.
Absolutely. It's been the big 3 of iRacing so far. Holslander, of course, with that success on the super speedways, was one of the most dominant drivers when we went over that direction in Daytona. Andrew Frenosh, we know how good he is when it comes to the mile and a halves with high horsepower, low downforce packages. He showed that at Atlanta. The question is, can he do it again? He was preparing for this race by going as long as 124 laps in practice to test out strategy. It's going to be tough to try and beat him tonight on the track.
Yeah, if you ever want to question why the 88 car is so good so consistently, that's why. It is the commitment to practice and to honing his craft. We'll have a field just a little bit over 30 cars getting set to rock and roll from Homestead in just a moment. Of course, with all of the 1.5 miler tracks this year, it is a 125 lap affair. But just to wrap up things from Atlanta last week, penalty points coming into this evening. Nobody really in the danger zone. Again, per RSR rules, if you get 7 penalty points, you'll sit for a week. Daniel Eberhardt and John Fowler both with 3 apiece. Trevor DeValderrama and Bobby Krug with 1 apiece. So still early in the season, a lot can happen, a lot can sway. But with 8 races still to go, this championship picture may already be coming into focus.
Indeed, but there's the chance it can change today. All it takes is one mistake with this small, short schedule such as this in the wintertime to be able to lose your advantage. Today, the driver's going to have to keep it nice and clean all the way to the checkered.
Let's go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSR TV starting grid, and it is that 88 car of Andrew Fridaj on pole. Only driver to get down into the sevens, a 31.792 will put him on pole, so Daniel Eberhardt has to settle for second on the outside of that front duo. Kyle Trudell starts in third position. Tonight, Rhett McBride will roll from the number 4 position, and Bobby Terrell rounds out your top 5.
Sam Nieto was the quickest car in single lap practice times. He qualified 6th though in the session. In row 4, Scott McClendon, who will start alongside Jared Mogar, one of his highest starting positions of the season so far. Galen Gidman starts 9th, and Nick Holslander rounds out the top 10.
Continuing on through, Kevin Pierce and Brian Chambliss going to make up row 6. That'll be P11 and 12, with Kyle Kamer and Bobby Krug next row back, 13th and 14th position. Jonathan Lawrence will start 15th, and Sean Kalis in the number 16 spot. John Fowler and Michael Kuczynski 17th and 18th. And then back on row 10, it'll be John Rodda to P19 and Ross Cato in 20th.
Joshua Bayard in 21st position. Andres Nunez will start in 22nd. Steve Cunningham at 32-1 in qualifying, 23rd with Steve Durham, 24th. Todd Novosad rounds out the top 25. One driver rounded out the qualifiers, Tom Morano. Rest of the field starting from the rear end. Eric Stanford, Jonathan Goodell, Steve Sora, as well as Gael Brooks and Chase Kelly round out your grid.
To look top to bottom at your LSR TV starting grid, let's talk more about the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. Again, 1.5 miles in length, but it is so unique because it is just an oval. No kink on the front stretch. It's not a tri-oval or a quad oval or a D-shaped oval. It is a straight shot from 4 to 1. That and the progressive banking, 18 degrees on the bottom and 20 up top, makes this one of the most entertaining and competitive oval tracks on the calendar.
Absolutely. It's always been a fan favorite as well as a driver's favorite because there's so much chances to try and move the field, but it's also a driver's track where if you burn up your equipment, you can drop back, but if you save enough, you're able to push your way to the field, and the best of the best can get to the front of the track. Don't forget, though, on top of that progressive banking, you're technically going uphill down towards the back straightaway and downhill heading to the front straightaway. That is to help the fans up at the grandstands see what's happening at the rear section of the racetrack. That makes the corner entries and exits a little bit more challenging, especially off the exit of turn 4.
Big point relating to the championship. Looks like Malik Ray not going to be making his start for round number 3, so that'll drop him back. We'll talk more as the night goes on, but as the pace car dives down and in, we're happy that you're with us on LSR TV and the iRacing Sports Network, where we say let's go racing from Homestead. Green flying in the air for round 3.
And we're already 3 wide. Scott McClendon already having to check up. He tried to squeeze it 3 wide and still is under Bobby Terrell.
Yeah, that's the fight right now for P5 at a quarter number 2. It's Terrell in the middle. The 22 of McClendon drops back. He was the challenger to the very inside. So they'll find themselves back to 2x2. And now a challenge for the race lead as the 90 car of Eberhardt tries to get it out to the inside of Fridaj. He'll keep it there side by side at the line. Fridaj does get lap number 1 led. And now Eberhardt will tuck in line behind.
Yeah, Eberhardt really good when it comes to the 1.5 miles with this type of package. And he showed that in practice. He showed this as well throughout the season. He's going to be someone that will keep Andrew very busy potentially as this race progresses.
He's certainly going to want to give him a run for his money. And you know that the Nani car has realized over the years of driving with Fridaj that if you let that 88 machine get away, it is not going to be an easy task to reel him back in. That's why he went for the challenge right off of the get-go. And through all of that excitement, the 3 and 2 wide, but no changes inside of your top 5. It is still Fridaj, Eberhardt, Trudell, McBride, and Terrell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But a challenge a little bit further back in the top 10 sees McClendon still on the inside, this time fighting with the car on the outside and Nick Holslander.
Many drivers preferred the bottom side to maintain positions, but there's a reason it's so easy to get passes done. If you get to the high side of somebody, you can make a move, but someone's off of the grass. John Fowler with trouble in the front.
He was one of the drivers who really struggled in Atlanta last week. You heard about him in a penalty point situation, and that car just got sideways at a turn 4. You can see him back there now. He's all on his own. He did a very good job of hanging on to it. We'll check the replay here. He's just going to lose the handle down the back straightaway. A little bit of an offline into 3, but what you'll see at a 4, Justin, is he just loses his on his own, and as he ends up with the grass, he just barely makes contact with the fence. Not enough though to bring it to yellow. You'll see it right here.
Yeah, this is one of the challenges. One, the track temp's 121 degrees, so it'll be hot, especially that part of the track where the sun is beating down. But two, it's a part of the track where if you end up hitting the gas too hard or too early, you will snap like that regardless of the track temperature situation. So it's a bit of a balance to be able to launch down off the corner of turn number 4 to be able to get a good exit. That's what the top 2 are currently doing, some good exits. One thing to note here, Evan, though, with the hot track temp, the times have already fallen off compared to practice by 1 second.
Yeah, so they really start to lose that bite early, and of course they're not going to continue to lose a second, per lap at this rate. It'll start to balance out, but there is certainly a big difference between okay tires and those fresh runs, to which they started this race with. You can still see the battle for the race lead on your screen. Daniel Everhart continues to trace the lines of the 88 car for Ninaj, keeping that car within a half a car length of him up at the front of the field. But in fact, everybody inside of the top 10 has single filed out for just a moment. First fight I see is back with Gidman and Chambliss. That's for P10 and 11. Your race leaders may be single file, but everybody else still trying to get spots. There's that fight down the back straightaway.
Yeah, and Chambliss, if he can get by clear in turn 3 apex, he'll be able to try and get the job done. The problem is, since he didn't do it there again, that run down the front straightaway off the exit of turn 4 is much more powerful by at least a few miles an hour, but then it becomes difficult to try and keep it up in the corner because that white line is where everybody's preferred the bottom. If you stay too high, it can chew up your tires. Gidman that time electing to back off. The next side-by-side battle is now already up to 8th position.
Yeah, trying to keep these moves on going, and the car on the attack is Holslander once more. So he'll get over the 2 of Sam Nieto for 7th and 8th position as Galen Gidman in the 94 finishes up his battle as well. So when you have these groups of, it looks like 6 cars almost here in a big line as you go on board with Holslander here, looking for a second race win of the year, but off pace compared to Ferdinand, at least this evening. He needs to get some work to do, but he got 6 cars lined up like this. All it takes is one to bobble. You can find yourself in a line very quickly. There was one car, though, parked in the inside wall that time, down the backstretch, but no yellow.
Yeah, that was for about a lap for Andres Nunez, who got loose off of turn 2 and then couldn't get himself backed up out of the grass without coming back across the track. Ended up taking the tow truck to keep it out of the racing line and bring himself away for repairs after smacking the inside wall. Unfortunate for him, as Holslander, he's looking like he's getting something figured out here. +3 already, has the run for 6th.
He does, and he'll peek down on the inside of Jared Bogar. This battle going on about 2.2 seconds off of the battle for the race lead, but it is Holslander on the bottom, Mogard on the outside, and that double O car is not just going to roll over and give this one up. He'll challenge right back on him, but if Holslander can get him, he's also got Terrell, McBride, all these cars stacked up in a pack here, as even from behind him, Sam Nieto in the 2 car kind of peeking to the inside. Oh, and they got awfully close that time. Mogard gonna get into the outside wall, and that'll hurt the double O car, and Holslander gets on through.
And just barely clipped the end of that safer barrier that time, Mogard. And that will affect his arrow, especially the second bounce. That was nearly disaster, and Nieto's in trouble.
Sam Nieto in the 2-car hangs on. He went way down to the apron and is able to hang on to that machine. So no further incident. We stay green. 1 lap for Mogard as he ended up in the fence at a 2. And out of 4, he door banged with Sam Nieto. But the 2-car only really got knocked down the banking a little bit. Let's rewatch this lap. You'll see the initial bit right there. That's when Mogard got into the fence the first time. Holslander completes the pass. And that allows Nieto to get to the inside. And then you'll see these 2 cars door bang off of 4. And I was certain that that 2 machine was going to end up in the fence. Right there's a little bit of contact. He gets out of the throttle. You see all that backfire. And somehow that car doesn't even leave the asphalt.
That might be what you consider a racing incident there, because Mogard actually fishtailed. You seen just the edge of that contact with Nieto there. Unfortunate for Nieto, though. He's now got aero damage on his Ford Mustang as the leaders, they're starting to try and check out. It's a half a second advantage over Kyle Trudell.
He continues to try to gain some advantage here as Trudell slips back just a little bit, but he is still in his own right a half a second up on Rhett McBride, so he's kind of the middleman, a sandwich here between the battle for first and second and the fighting going on further back for 4th, 5th, and 6th spot. And there was a good onboard shot there with Eberhard. I mean, you can see he's running exactly in the wake of the 88. Now, at this end of the racetrack, turns in a little bit earlier down into corner 3, and they'll end up at about the same spot center off. Those 2 cars looking very even right now. Of course, Ferdinand qualified on pole, Eberhard in second position. Neither of these drivers, though, the top cars in practice, Ferdinand third best. Daniel Eberhard was outside of the top 15, so obviously he saved something for when it became important.
You have to wonder if the track temps got a little bit too higher up when Eberhard got in, because Ferdinand jumped in as soon as the session started and ran 124 laps, Evan. In that stint, he had 2.5 seconds of total fall off and pit on lap 61. Compare that to Sam Nieto, who also did a long run. Nieto had 2.7 seconds of total fall off with 10 less laps on the racetrack. So that's definitely something to keep in mind with how these drivers have been able to save tires as Eberhard nearly swept up to the track.
Yeah, it almost looked like as he got a run off of the corner that he actually tried to make the move to the outside, and he just overdrove that transition a little bit and just about put himself in the fence. So I don't know what the issue was for Ferdinand, but he was certainly slower corner exit that time, and Eberhard probably could have made the bottom work, instead trying to go and take what may be that preferred line away, and it just did not pay off. But if you had any question about if Eberhard was, a real competitor here to challenge the 88 at this moment, or if he was just kind of trying to apply a little bit of pressure to keep the 88 machine honest, I think that answers it for you there, that Daniel Eberhard wants to go to the race lead, and he wants to do it early. Every point counts. In a 10 race every week count championship, and there's only 2 bonus points maximum available on any given night. 1 point for every car who leads a lap, and another bonus point for the car who leads the most laps. So Eberhard wanting to get this done early, so not only can he bank that first one, but he can start counting a tally towards the second, because it has been Ferdinand from the get-go. This time by, they'll be down 18 laps.
Yeah, they've been trading laps, and the track has also cooled down a little bit by at least 10 degrees. So the grip levels are there, especially if you've been saving. And it seemed like Eberhard has been wanting to just, feeling content actually, I should rather say, or just right behind, bumping a little bit and then waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, Nieto, he's trying to go on a bit of a recovery drive as he's just about caught up to Mogard.
It was not a very good opening run there for the 2 of Nieto, and he has since picked things back up. The driver who comes into this evening at a distant 4th in the championship, and with Malik Ray not making this start, then he will now become almost certainly 3rd in the championship and try to close things in with 8 weeks still to go. He was able to get around to 31 and out to the inside of Mogard. This battle now for the number 8 position, 2 car down low, and he's going to take it away on entry. We'll see if Mogard can kind of wind that thing back up and come back to him. He's got to run, but the 2 car slides up in front to complete the pass.
And it looks like Mogard just going to follow on behind, not going to force it on in, knowing that they had contact before. But there's that difference there. If you're able to save enough tires and ride the bottom line in turn 2, it can make so much more ground compared to running up top against the wall in some cases and then trying to ramp it off the racetrack. That time Nieto was able to use that bottom lane about, should I say, half a lane up from the white line and then go from there. Much better tires right now compared to the 00 with the aero damage.
It's certainly really helping him out here, and you'll see why as he was able to move through all of this, and that battle now simmers down just a tad bit. Looks like Kyle Kamer's another car, the 8 machine, who every time I kind of take a glance through the field, he's not really in the racing line. He's either down on the bottom trying to make it work or way up top, and he's got a front row seat of a battle for P9 as Brian Chambliss is able to get it back around Mogard. So just as we thought this area right here that you see now would kind of settle down, it was the 31 car of Chambliss via the bottom to get around Mogard, and that might set him up for Kamer to try as well. Looking inside, but he won't make the dive into 3.
And that damage is looking even worse than initially thought there at this point for the 00. He is up to 4 miles an hour slower per straightaway, Evan, and he's struggling with the handling of the race car since it hit right towards the right front tire on that race car. So nothing Mogard can do at this point except hope and pray for a caution flag because his handling is just about gone and his straight line speed is not being helped at all with the damage.
You can really see as these drivers try to struggle, just that car isn't as stable on the exit, kind of wishy-washy on which lane he wants to be in, and now the 8 of Kamer completed the pass, but he goes up top, and Brian Chambliss in the 31 wants to get away from all of this excitement, but not done yet. Mogard got a nose down there. Third car in that group is Galen Gidman. You can see him in the 94 close it in. Here's an onboard shot with him as he tries to go on the inside of the 00. Almost squeezed it in there, but opts not to this time in lap 24.
Looks like he's just going to be nice and patient for at least this time by because I think Gidman knows he's going to be potentially faster. 0.2 of a second quicker last time by. He just has to time it up, especially since Kyle Kamer is running that very, very top Larson line in 3 and 4, nearly tapping the wall. This time he's got the run with the straight line speed.
He does, but is this shallow quarter entry going to be plausible for the 94 to get the job done? Look at Mogard. He'll go up top where the 8 car of Kamer is, and that's going to give him this big run out of turn 2. And just like that, he's able to hang on, and Gidman has to wait for another lap. Issues on the front straightaway, though. The 30 car, Michael Kuczynski, running back in 30th position, got sideways at a 4. There may have been contact with the 75 of Steve Soa. Let's watch this replay again. This was a battle for position, and it looks like really he just lost it on his own, and there was nowhere for Soa to go. Kuczynski gets a small bit of help there and ends up at the inside wall at least the 4th time we've seen a car on quarter exit get loose on their own. We get back and we'll take a second look.
Yeah, you're going to see this right here. This is just after a position battle with Sora. He gets on clear, but you'll see it right at the exit of turn 4. He starts fishtailing, hits the gas a little bit too hard, gets him a bit loose. He lets off the gas a second time. Sora doesn't expect that, and that sends the 30 machine into the wall, and now he is the last running car on the racetrack in live action. Bad luck for the 30 machine. Significant damage to the front nose.
The real tough break as he does actually decide to bring that car, Kuczynski does, to come down to the pit lane. And of course, for Soa out on the racetrack, he'll have to deal with the damage as this thing continues on. But there's our friends at it again. It is Gidman and Mogard once more. I mean, these cars really are going at it. They've lost over 2 seconds to the race leader in the last 5 laps as this opening run has now brought us to, seated at the top of your screen, lap number 28 of 125. So inside of 100 laps to go in this evening's NPHY.org 188. Still no changes up front except, well, it's the biggest race lead we've seen thus far. It may be only 4/10, but that is a far cry from when it was Eberhardt plastered on the deck lid of 49. So the 88 machine, a little bit of breathing room up top.
Indeed, right now, you can see Eberhardt starting to lose that ground. You mentioned it before. He's been trying to change different lines. The thing is, Frinosh He's known for trying to get drivers to fight with him and then take off on the long run after saving his tires. You can do that by, say, running only half throttle compared to where you might run full throttle for a little bit in the corner apex. Eberhard, he's now doing that now, where Freenosh, he's in a situation where he's got that extra bit of grip to get him earlier on the gas and rotate off. Able to get this time by, for example, about 20 feet earlier in the gas as Eberhard nearly bobbled into the fence.
He did get a little bit out of shape that time, and of course, even if we're not looking at the battle all the time, you can see that car behind interval with Andrew Friedage as your leader, 39 laps led, his best lap in the car behind now at 3/4 of a second. You can tell when he is getting better and when he's able to pull away. Kyle Trudell, though, for the longest time had been riding in third uncontested. He has since been passed by Rhett McBride, so the 5 car has been able to get around him as Trudell has really started to back off. So the 5 car now third. Trudell drops to 4th, and no change with Bobby Terrell behind. He's still P5. Nick Holslander wants to do something about it, but he's a little bit too far behind. You can see Terrell there, really nobody in front or behind him. He's got a nice little bubble as that final car in the top 5.
Yeah, for the time being, especially in that Looney Tunes Junior Motorsports throwback machine. But right now, compare the pace to him and the leaders. 0.2 of a second he's losing each time by. And it doesn't help that the drivers behind him are slowly gaining ground on corner entry. But look at this. More fighting going on the racetrack. Kyle Kamer with his high line, and with Gidman one in the bottom.
So Gidman wants once more to just put this thing to rest. These cars have exchanged blows. Kyle Kamer, kind of the 4th car in this Nieto, Chambliss, Kamer, and Gidman group now on the outside line and trying to make it happen. That is such a viable and such a good option at this racetrack specifically. That's why we mentioned at the start that progressive banking just gives that top that little bit more that at so many racetracks it lacks. And I think this time at a 2, you'll see the 8 of Gidman, or I guess I should say the 8 of Kamer get around Gidman, and he does. So they will settle for now P10 and 11 with the 8 of Kamer on top. He's a driver who's been trying to make some strides forwards, and as the 94 challenges back down to the bottom, I guess he's realized that it's not going to be made easy for him.
It's not going to be whatsoever. He needs to time it up perfectly if he wants to do it on the bottom. If I was him, I would actually try and start going up to the top side and try and get to Kamer's outside, which would be very difficult, yes, but if you can time it up right, take away Kamer's run, force him to lift, that gives you the top line, and then you're just like that, he'd be in the top 10. But right now, he's just not willing to go up to the top line. He likes the bottom as his preferred line. He feels like it's better in corner entry and apex, it seems, but that exit is what has been making this fight so elongated at this point between these two drivers.
And also just wanted to give a call as we continue to watch these cars duke it out with, again, Gidman on the bottom, and that time with enough of a run that he is going to get all the way by. He'll pass the crossover. Oh, and what a save. Kamer trying to yank that thing to the inside and nearly split himself out. Hangs on to it, but does lose the positioning. So Gidman back in front, and I think the 8 car a lot more comfortable up top. You can't just turn that car down the hill earlier than that. That throws your exit way out of whack, and we nearly wrecked it because of it. But just to finish that point that I was trying to get to, I mentioned that, Gidman was one of the drivers who had been floating around about Kamer was trying to move forward. We've got some big movers just one spot behind here. It is a fight between Jonathan Cadell and Jared Mogard. And as Cadell clears him on the backstretch, he's now plus 16 spots. Started in 28th, and under green flag conditions only, he's all the way up to P12. Eric Stanford behind him, also on the move, started 27th, and he's about to be 13th if he can get around the 00.
Yeah, the Steel Horse Racing Machine, absolutely stellar ride, top 10 pace, but Mogard at this pace running about top 25 speed and struggling like crazy, especially in the bottom of the corners. Again, puts himself up for grabs for Eric Stanford to make the pass, and at this point, the 00's only hope is get a caution, fix the aero, especially on that right front, and go from there, because until then, that car is going to get more and more looser and more difficult to drive and still be down straight line speed. Stanford gets on through, but Ross Cato is about to reel in Mogart next.
And you can see that Mogart just isn't comfortable. You can have a loose race car and it can scrub off speed, but the car can still look, I don't know if stable or under control is the right way to put it, but it seems like he still hasn't found that sweet spot. He feels like if that car isn't loose, that he's not pushing it enough, and when it starts to break loose, he hasn't been able to quite identify where that marker is, because even on the straights, he's still a little bit squirrely from the corner prior to, just trying to find where it all plays out. And talk about playing out, how about a pit strategy move? Kyle Kamer down pit road in the 8 machine, just shy of lap number 40. This would indicate a 2-stop call for him this race. If he were to go 40 laps each time, he'd be able to make it about the distance, right on the money, to 125.
Based on the data seen by some of the drivers on their longest runs, drivers might be able to stretch at 63, realistically up to about 61. But at this point, he can divide it 40, 80, and then to the finish, essentially, if he wants. But as well, we've seen this in the peak race in just a few months ago. As Mogart also comes in, it opens up the strategy for when you want to come down the second stint, especially if you're in a battle or want to go on fresher tires later in the run. It opens up your strategy.
Yeah, if you were to try to stretch this thing somehow to go on a one-stop, you would have to get about 62, 63 laps out of it. That's right at the ceiling. There's no leeway. But with a 125-lap race, if you do go for a two-stopper, you can easily go from a 40-lap run, which may be your number, to 45. You could pit earlier at 35 and still not put that second or third stop, or I guess the run to the end, in jeopardy. So it does give these drivers a lot of leeway. Certainly if you're in a battle, the short pit option to come down to get fresher tires sooner, therefore you get to back out onto the racetrack and put down faster laps. Well, the guy you were battling with is on the old tires, is a viable option. And just as I said that, Daniel Eberhardt will come down pit road from second. He had just fallen a single second behind Ferdinand. It was the biggest deficit he had seen all night. He is in, and now we'll see if the 88 car immediately wants to respond to it.
Yeah, a lot of the Aegis and no-name motorsports machines have ducked down. I'm curious to see, is Andrew going to think this strategy to try and stretch it will be completely viable? Because realistically, I would go maybe a lap 50, then a lap 100, or earlier than 100 rather, on the second stop. Andrew might be leaning towards that direction, since he knows based on the experience he can try to get to 63, but there's a chance he runs out of fuel if he tries it with 2 laps to go.
And the question as well for Ferdinand is, what does he feel like his strategy is? Because I don't think Ferdinand, if his decision was, I'm going to do a two-stopper, I think he's got the car to do it. I don't think he would go to a one-stopper in response to Eberhardt going on a 2. But I do think it might happen vice versa. I think, the second fastest car may change their strategy based on the leaders, just because you need to find something extra. But if Ferdinand is indeed going to push this thing, I feel like that's what he thinks the best call is. And keep in mind, during that practice session when we went on the air during Q as well, you would mention that Ferdinand should basically run an entire race's worth of laps. So he has done the research, so he knows exactly what he wants to do. And I'm not surprised at all that he does it to make a pit stop in response to the entry of Eberhardt, because this 88 car is typically somebody who kind of sets up a game plan and sticks to it.
Indeed, but we got more drivers pitting. Trudell, Hostlander, and Nieto all ducked down at the exact same time. And remember, with this pit lane, now you don't have to take the access road. In the last update, it was made where you don't have to take that road. You can go straight into the pit entry specifically, and drivers had spun themselves out trying to practice this, including Nieto a couple times. It can be difficult to try and get yourself down from 140 off the banking to just 50 at the pit cone.
Yeah, I saw Steve Solo, one of those drivers during the practice session, who finds himself in the middle of the pack. He's actually bumped up to 13th as more cars come down to the pit lane. He was one of the cars that got into the fence, and I mean, you want to talk about pit road entries. We saw some really exciting ones at Atlanta Motor Speedway last week with drivers. Malik Ray, one of the more, flamboyant ones on making his pit entries a show because he was sliding into those things right up to the commitment code. We saw some of the drivers overshoot that speed on a pit road entry. As you see Ferdinand get unlapped by the 90. So Eberhardt's back on the lead lap of the 88 car and so far appearing to be unbothered. But look at how he pulls away. That's how much better those new tires are.
Yeah, that 2-3 seconds of fall off right now is really seeing those Goodyear Eagles fall off the cliff, basically. But man, oh man, some of these drivers after the pit stops really wanting to have a dogfight for position.
And you can see this battle going on as it was the number 11 car snaking through the middle there, trying to win out in this. And now the 94 drops back of Gidman, who is right now in position 4. Again, all of that not for position. It is just the cars who have pitted and are on the better tires. You know, if they didn't feel a sense of urgency, they could probably take it easy and not force moves like that. But because they realize this is their time to make time up, they want to push, and that's how you ended up with that exchange there. As we'll watch a car stay up on the outside. That's the 50 with Bobby Krug. He's been struggling the last few laps, getting in and out of the fence, and then the 11 to John Arata and closed it in on him. That's a fight for position.
Yeah, more aero damage for Krug at this point in the Gateway Motorsports Park Kartplex machine. It seems to have burned that right front tire just about off with that higher line and is just having to feather the throttle so much. It's just killing his speed regardless off the corner. Already lost 3 car lengths that turn 3 and 4 with how hard he's been pushing up top.
And cars also struggling when they run that high line, even if it's the car getting loose, you might have to step it up a little bit to save it, or the car just not rotating like you would want. We've seen a handful of cars get into the outside ball, and they really haven't been hard hits, but you'll notice a lot of passenger side cosmetic damage from some of those race cars getting a little bit too friendly with that outside ball. But Arata gets around the 51 of Krug, so he'll crack into the top 10 for the first time tonight. Just in front of them, Gael Brooks in the 71 up to P9. He started 30th. So the running order is certainly shuffled up because of the pit stops. Again, Daniel Eberhardt is going to become the race leader once everybody who has not yet pitted does eventually come down to pit road, and he's currently P12, so kind of makes it easy on you. At least or about 11 cars still need to pit, and that includes Ferdinand, who I think at this point has to be going to go to the midway point and go for a one-stop strategy.
Or is at least trying to get as long as he can possibly on the fuel tank at this point. Many of these drivers, though, as to be expected, starting to pit at the 50-lap mark. But Clendon, Novosad, a few other drivers just ducked down this time by. So the strategy's wide open, and it's going to affect how a lot of these positions go here. Some drivers going to potentially jump ahead 10 seconds, then fall back. Others are going to have to dig, and claw themselves back in.
At lap number 52 in this one, and expecting the cars who are trying to go for the one-stopper to pit right at halfway will wait before we do get to our midway race break, which would be about 10 laps from now. We'll kind of wait till the pit strategy completes itself, but just some quick housekeeping notes. Only Andres Nunez in the 97 has gone behind the wall. All 30 other cars are still on the racetrack at the moment. Ferdinand, McBride, Gidman, Chambliss, and Stanford, your top 5. Eric Stanford, one of the bigger drivers who's going to been on the move. The trio up front, though, in your top 3 are all cars that were competitive early, but, they are not, spread apart because of the pit strategy. Ferdinand has just been 8 seconds faster than McBride, 12 seconds faster than Gidman at this point.
Indeed, he's just had that blistering fast pace all race long. It's been difficult to even top him, and he's running the exact pace he showed in practice. Meanwhile, Gael Brooks currently a bit on the struggle bus. He's nearly tapped the wall 2 times since we started following him in the 71.
I think that might be the commentator's curse then, as that 71 car continues to ring it around the outside line in his Toyota Supra. Started back 30th. The 31 cars who took to the green flag in this NPHY.org 188. Again, I don't know if P8 is a realistic showing of, an actual running position, if you will, because keep in mind, these are 2 pit strategies. So we'll really only know if Guile Brooks is going to be able to compete for a top 5 or, top 10, top 15 spot, wherever at the end. And he's in the fence again, just as I mentioned it.
Yeah, right now Brooks, I think, is trying to stretch that fuel, knowing how Andrew was able to get in terms of stints. And that 71 struggling. As you look back at the race leader, yeah, he is definitely at this point, have to be at the very least committed to that strategy. It's looking pretty good for him right now, though. It's the matter of when does he stuck down, because that will determine, can he make it to the finish line.
And obviously at this point now, we talked about that flexibility and the concern that, as you see Ferdinand battling with a lapped car on the outside, that is the 2 of Sam Nieto, not for position. Jared Bogard also going to go around the outside. Again, these are cars that have pitted. This is not for position. Ferdinand over 8 seconds ahead of the next closest driver. But we talked about that flexibility for the cars who were going for the 2-stopper, where you could go a little bit earlier or go a little bit later, than actually splitting this race into literal thirds with 2 trips down to the pit lane. For Ferdinand, you really don't have that flexibility. He has to hit his number of 62 or 63 if he wants to make it to lap number 125, and it does not consider the possibility of as many as 3 attempts at a green-white checkered overtime finish. Now, if this race stays clean and green like it has been, shouldn't be an issue, but these are the things where that flexibility, sometimes drivers gravitate towards that call because of that unknown.
Indeed, at this point, it's going to be interesting if he can be able to hit that exact mark. I, again, think he can. There's still ways to go in this race, though, but one thing to note, Eberhard, he's just 17 seconds back right now in 4th. Everybody else in front of him is trying the same strategy. As you mentioned, going to cycle to the race lead, but it's going to be a massive one by at least 8 seconds for Eberhard.
Yeah, he'll get way out in front, and I'm not a big fan of math, but to put it simply, is if the difference between the 2-stop and 1 strategy, obviously, if you come down to the pit lane twice, you are spending that much more time literally off of the racetrack. So you have to take that pit stop time, basically an entire additional pit stop, and you have to hope, and of course this is only if the race stays green throughout, because then we'll be able to see both of these varying strategies play to fruition. But basically, that additional trip down to the pit lane, the 30 seconds or whatever you're going to give up by pitting, you need to be able to make that same amount of time up in the difference in the tire fall off. So I suppose if you had somebody on the pit box, they could literally do that math by counting how much tire fall off do I have over this amount of time, and stop it at lap 40 as opposed to lap 60 or whatever you're going to, and see if that tire difference is more than or less than the time you're giving up by pinning in additional time. And that's why these drivers figure that out beforehand or have somebody else in the iRacing sim with them to help with those calls.
Indeed, but here's another thing to think about too. The pit lane delta is up to 38 seconds when you include how long you have to go down the lane and how some of these drivers are able to charge down that pit lane. Edge is going to be able to cut that right off at this point. It's safe to say he is right at the edge of that 63 lap cushion. There's a chance he can have by the end of this race, at least a double-digit advantage. But the thing is, you don't forget there's the chance of cautions. Andrew's coming this time by.
Just came over the radio, and that is going to be right on the money, because this time by, as they take lap 63, we will be halfway home in the NPHY.org 188, and all these other cars who are trying to go for the one-stop strategy also should be pitting this time or next time also. But you can see he'll hold the bottom of the racetrack, get set, and let's see how well of an entry the 88 machine can get at 110 miles an hour. A little bit of a slide, but he was able to get it down to pit road speed here, 50 miles an hour. Your race leader is in. McBride following from second. Gidman also following from third. And that'll put Daniel Eberhard back to the race lead the first time tonight officially at Homestead.
Yeah, he nearly snapped that car, mind you, on that entrance. But for Eberhard, now it's going to be the question, Once he comes down for the seconds pit stop, we'll be able to reel in the 88 machine, because that will be about a lot of that time he will lose once he comes down to down the pit lane once again. Remember, he pit around lap 40, 45-ish. Might be able to go until around at least lap 90-ish minimum based on that math in terms of how to split that up evenly.
And he could also watch Andrew Freenage start to close in on him, because that flexibility allows Eberhardt, based on what he's seen, the interval between he and the 88 machine. Do I want to stick with pitting at about the same distance of a run and to come down to the pit lane at around 85 or 90? Do I want to push it a little bit later because I've got more space and I'd have the better tires later? Or is he catching to be too fast? I need to pit, get the tires now so he does not get too far ahead that I'm not going to be able to catch him. These are all the things that he's thinking. But as promised, now past the halfway point in this race, let's take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. So Daniel Eberhardt, the two-stop strategy, he's about 15 to 20 laps away from being in his window to come down for the second and final time. He is leading Bobby Terrell by 9 seconds back to the 4 car, who right now sits in position 2. Nick Holslander has been able to work his way up to 3rd. Kyle Trudell is still in 4th, and Kyle Kamer rounds out your top 5. Sam Nieto is exactly where he started in 6th. So is Scott McClendon in the number 7 spot. Jonathan Cadell, your big mover, up 20. He's P8. Jared Bogard is 9th. And then the first car on the one-stop strategy, Freenage, rounding out your top 10.
Steve Durham's at 11th position at the moment, but the last car won on the lead lap is Joshua Bayard, 32.7 seconds behind Daniel Eberhardt last time by. Steve Sora's in 13th with Galen Gidman in 14th. Those positions, should note, just swapped as you've seen them zip on by. Chase Kelly is in 15th. Rhett McBride currently 16th. With Steve Cunningham 17th, Ross Cato 18th, Jonathan Lawrence in 19th, Eric Stanford rounds out the top 20.
And all these cars still a lap down. It'll include Bobby Krugers in 21st, and now to be Brian Chambliss 22nd, John Fowler 23rd, Tom Morano 24th, and Sean DeCalis P25. 2 cars, 2 laps down. Rodden 26th and Novosad 27th. Rodden's actually back down to pit lane, so he'll fall further down. Gail Brooks out of this one in 28th position, so he'll drop back. So bump Kaczynski to 28th. Kevin Pearson 29th. And then probably a P30 finish for Gail Brooks. He'll join Andres Nunez in 31st as the only car's out in a spinner at a turn number 4. First caution flag of the night, and it is John Fowler.
And this changes absolutely everything, and Andrew is now without his track position. Eberhardt now takes the race lead. Unbelievable as we take a look at this on the replay. This was off of turn 4. He went completely sideways, Evan. That's how much he snapped it.
Yeah, and the onboard shot will really give you the best look here. There's, no interference from any other cars. You can do see some cars up the road that he was trying to catch up to make it about him a watch. It gets sideways, he cranks that thing to the right, and it was just not coming back. And so many times we've seen an incident like this not trigger a caution flag. That car did not come to a complete stop, so we had gotten away with a few of those. This time we do not, and it brings out the first yellow of the night. Fowler claiming responsibility for that one. Just to wrap up our look at the bottom, that was a look at your FEG Midway Race Break. FEG PC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the over 600 iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group build. PCs fit every budget from $540 and up. FEGPC.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. So now with everybody inside the fuel window, they all want fuel and tires. Eberhardt first one in as he heads to pit stall number 2.
And for Andrew Freenage, he lost all that track position. That is major for the 88. All the way at the back end of the top 10. He just got in his box as Eberhardt was able to pit. That's how big an advantage there was, and how many lap cars between him and the rest of some of the leaders. Oh my goodness, this is going to shake everything up.
Top four stay the same off of pit lane. Eberhardt, Terrell, Holslander, and Trudell. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kyle Kamer will end up in 5th position. McClendon's in 6th spot. 7th will be Nieto. Looks like also 8th maybe to McBride, or there's a couple of lapped cars mixed in there as well. But I think Ferdinand's still going to be about a P9 or P10 car for the restart. And it could have been worse in the sense that, I mean, he could have been a lap down when the yellow came out. But again, if the strategy was able to play through, we would have really learned who had the better strategy, the one-stoppers or the two-stoppers. But because of the way the yellow fell, Justin, we can tell you which driver had the right strategy, and that was those that were stopped for 2. They were about to come back down, and instead they get to do so under yellow and give up no track position.
Yeah, absolutely now, and everyone's on the same set of tires, which is going to be crucial, so it's just try and race as hard as you can and hope it stays green now. So I'm curious to see what Andrew does here when we get back under green, because he's got to cut through 9. He's starting in 9th. He's going to have to cut his way up through 8 drivers to get there. But the biggest guys who had a big advantage from that, Terrell, Holslander, Trudell, and don't forget Jonathan Goodell, who's a plus 20 now in 8th.
And the big thing for Ferdinand is, I mean, we've seen him drive through the field. But I actually think the key for this run is more restarts. Because as they went, and this run here, as we'll restart, I think just outside of 50 laps to go, we can go the distance. But when we saw Eberhardt make his first trip down to the pit lane at around lap 40 or 45, the largest advantage that Ferdinand had pulled on him was 1 single second. So if Eberhardt doesn't get held up front, and of course it compares, if Terrell or Holslander fight with him and how much trouble Ferdinand has getting through the pack, I don't think he catches Daniel Eberhardt if this race goes green the distance. But if you sprinkle in a couple of restarts, then I think his chances go up. But what I have learned by covering all of these races, Justin, on Mondays is do not count out ever Andrew Ferdinand. But it'll be a tall order as the lights go on top of the pace car. He's going to be inside of row 5 in P9.
Yeah, this is going to get interesting. And you're right about that, because him and Eberhardt have been dead on in terms of pace up until the 30 or 40 lap mark of a run. That's where Andrew starts to pull away. So it might actually be beneficial, too, to think about this, where if you don't get the cautions, precautions, maybe save some tires and then charge your way up and go from there. As long as you don't fall behind by, say, 2-3 seconds, it's realistic that Andrew might be able to do something here and catch back up.
Well, it is all going to come down to at least this critical restart, but how many more will we have as one yellow has thrown a wrench into the strategy? It's set for a restart, 53 laps to go, still from a Homestead Miami Speedway. Is the pace car going to dive down and in? Let's see what the 90 car's got, but he's got to go on the defensive. Green flag back in the air. It's Eberhardt to turn 1, leaving a fight for second behind him.
There were some massive checkups on that start, that time by. As right now, Holslander able to get a good run off of turn 2.
Good run, that time off of 2. He's able to get in front of the Ford Otero, who drops 1 off for the restart. Trudell behind in a number 4 spot as he tries to look to the inside, but is unable. And they will end up single file now through 3 and off of 4. And all of this crowding for second on back. Great to the 90 car. He just needs somebody to challenge on Holslander, and that's not going to happen. It's instead Trudell to the inside on Terrell for 3rd.
And now they're battling side by side, 3 rows deep, in fact, at this point. As McClendon's starting to slow up, trying to go 3 wide, Terrell, not going to work there. Here comes Kamer.
Kamer tries to get himself into the correct position, and we'll see how all of this shakes out. As you can see, all of the crowding 2 wide, multiple rows wide, with the double O of McClendon on the back of the 8 of Kyle Kamer. These cars tighter now than they were off of the restart, but they still continue to go at it.
And this is the coolest the track's been all race, 114 degrees with a cloud above the circuit. That's going to help things out in terms of the grip levels, and it's really helping both of these lines keep up on the short run. But eventually, those lines are going to swap a bit. The top line going to be preferred off 4, the bottom line going to be preferred off 2, well, the lead is up for grabs.
How about Kyle Trudell? He'll dive to the inside and will be Eberhardt's challenger and overtaker. New race leader, 76 laps in, 3 wide, also for 5th on back. But how about the 7 car to the race lead for the first time tonight?
Absolute power move to get to the inside and be able to drive by Eberhardt, but the question is, how long can he hold on? Mind you, Andrew Freenosh is trying to make it 3 wide still for position. At the back of this group, it's getting very dicey. Knowing track position going to be key. Andrew wants that track position now as he finally gets clear of the 4.
Yeah, the 88 machine sees this as a good opportunity. All these cars fighting, all these cars close. In front of him, McClendon and the 80 Kamer leaning on each other. That time at a 4. As the 88 machine is now as high as the number 6 spot. Kamer way up the hill. McClendon holds the bottom. Does he dare look to the middle? It's going to close up. He'll go to the inside. 3 wide down the front straightaway as Andrew Freenosh tries to dig. Kamer clears both of them on the outside. So it'll be Freenosh fighting with McClendon for 5th spot. And now maybe a twofer as they'll both dart to the inside of the 8.
Bit of a dicey move for McClendon to make it 3 wide. Will Kamer back off the gas? Yes, he will. Lets them get some breathing room.
Look at that 22 immediately back onto the bumper as these drivers exchange 3 wide, multiple laps in a row. But after it's all said and done, Freenosh on top. He is now P4. He has gotten the critical job done of getting these passes done in succession early. He is only 6/10 behind Kyle Trudell, and with 46 to go, that is ample opportunity to reel him in if he keeps at least the same speed he had on that first run.
Trouble.
And a caution.
Cars are spinning in turn 3.
Jacket yellow with the night, a couple of cars around and into the fence, and it is the 94 of Gidman who is sideways in 3 and 4. And it looks like there was contact in this between he and the 5 of Rhett McBride on entry to 3.
Yep, absolutely. You can see they were fighting side by side aggressively for a little bit. And you see them. Let's keep an eye on this. This is on the entrance of turn 3, but they make the contact. McBride gets to the inside. And while Gidman tries to arc it down, doesn't it see the 5 down there? And ends up clipping somebody as he slid up. Ends up slamming the wall and bringing out the second caution of the race, and will be bunched up yet again with Andrew Freenosh in 4th.
It was an awfully close call there, as it almost looked like the 94 machine was trying to make that move to get down on the inside of Terrell, and McBride had kind of snuck up on him on the inside. Maybe he was hoping that he was clear, but I mean, neither driver really went all the way for the move. The 94 could have backed out of it, but he had gone down just enough to catch the 5. And that is the second yellow of the night. So back down pit road we go. And now we'll see critical pit stops under the caution. You got to be perfect as to not lose spots.
Yeah, can't afford any mistakes here, and some drivers struggled with sliding to the pits. Different surfaces for this lane. You have the asphalt pavement for part of the track, concrete for the pit stalls. That can cause a lot of slippage when you go into the stall, and a lot of slippage when you go out. As you see with Holslanders, they come out.
This race off for the pit lane maintained by the 7 cars. So that is a big check mark for Trudell, who doesn't lose anything. And of course, the battle off behind him is going to be a critical part as well. Looks like Trudell, Eberhardt, Holslander, Freenosh, McClendon, 2, 3, 4, 5. No changes in the top 5.
Yeah, each of them hit their marks perfectly. We're dead on just about within 0.3 of a second on the pit stops. The first driver outside the 14.7s is Kyle Kamer in the 6th position. But man, oh man, this race could get very interesting now with Andrew back inside the top 4 after after being so aggressive. The most aggressive we've seen the 88 this season so far. And that's going to be interesting. Can Kyle hold on with Daniel Eberhardt now back within range?
And of course, at least taking a look at the driver radio communication, it does not look like that any drivers have taken responsibility for that incident, which means, according to the penalty point system that we reminded you of, Fowler claimed his earlier, and he kind of gets into a dangerous spot now because if you have penalty points, if you go a race without accruing any more, you'll get 1 point taken off of your tally. Well, Fowler had 3 coming into tonight. He's got at least 1 additional. He's up to 4. That's getting into the danger zone. Again, 7 is a 1-race suspension. Neither driver from that last incident claiming responsibility, so that'll be reviewed post-race. If a single driver is found at fault, they will be given 2 penalty points because it was unclaimed instead of the 1, or it can be determined to race an incident, and nobody gets any points, but 1 claimed, 1 unclaimed so far on our 2 yellows.
Indeed, it's going to be... I don't blame him for trying not to claim it because you had 1 driver trying to arc it down and 1 driver trying to push the other up for position on the swapback, or the switchback rather. It's going to be interesting how it comes out of the review, but it's going to be an even more interesting battle for this race lead when we get back under green because we're just about set to do so. Wave around cars, going to go right on by with the 1-to-go signal.
Yeah, lights out, so it'll allow Todd Novosad, Steve Cunningham, and Jonathan Cadell all to get it back onto the lead lap. They're able to do so by opting not to come down to the pit lane, so they stay out. They end up in front of all of the race leaders and, in effect, get their lap back to wave bys just so that they don't restart in front of the leaders. They actually get to restart at the back of the pack where they are supposed to. So we'll double up, and it'll be Everhart on the outside of the front row once more. Still Trudell on the bottom. Hulslander, Ferdinand, row 2. That 88 car picked up 5 on the last restart. I'm nervous if I'm either of the cars in front of him.
I'm very nervous, and I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew tries to make it 3 wide if he gets the opportunity based on the moves we've seen from him on that last run. He knew he had a possible winning strategy if it stayed green. Now he's going to have to balance the aggression of the short run with his balance of wearing tires for the long run. It could get interesting.
Well, let's see what happens on this one as the pace car will dive off it in, and it is a restart with 42 laps still to go at Homestead, Miami. A slow roll for the 7 of Trudell. Green flag back in the air. 3rd restart tonight, 3rd different leader on one of them as the 7 car gets a good advantage through 2.
Yeah, there was a big checkup on that bottom side yet again, but Andrew already up on the high side of Hulslander. How aggressive will Andrew do this run is the question because he's already within range of the 90 machine. They've been dead even on pace on the short run. It's going to be interesting how difficult and how hard the 88 fights the 90.
And of course, getting these spots quick is key for him as he tries to take 1 spot away at a time. First on the 11 on the inside of Nick Hulslander. Side by side, top line to Ferdinand, just too good. And for the 2 race winners so far this year, Ferdinand has been better tonight at Homestead as he now does make that transition to 3rd. Side by side behind them sees Kamer way up on the outside of McClendon for P5.
Yeah, you see that right now up on your screen. Kamer's been consistently up on the top side, but Eberhard just let the 88 go up free notch for 2nd. That's forced a battle for 3rd spot already.
He got down to the bottom and made quick work, so just like that, Ferdinand just 2nd. Look at Hulslander. He and the 90 car traded some painted 1 and 2 and nearly got a little bit too close together on the exit, but they somehow keep her straight. Ferdinand now 2nd, Eberhard in 3rd, and Hulslander maintains the number 4 position. So inside of 40 to go, Kyle Trudell has got the 2-time defending Cup and the 1-time defending Winter Series champion hot on his heels. The best car all night is only 5 car lengths away from getting back on top.
Kyle's got the benefit of clean air, but Andrew's got the benefit of applying pressure and trying to force a mistake and keep towards that back bumper. That is what he does best, that 88 machine. And he's got the chance to show why he's so good at that now. Meanwhile, Hulslander's starting to fall back because McClendon is diving underneath.
And McClendon wants to take advantage of this and go off for the get-go, and he's going to push up off of the corner. Hulslander saw that, stepped up a lane, and very courteously gave that 22 machine a little bit of space, and now McClendon should have the big advantage down here in 3, but the 11 wants to pinch him a little bit. I mean, Holslander showed that he's not afraid to fight with these guys and you know, put up some resistance, and I just don't think it's going to be enough to actually get all the way back around to McClendon. The 22 had it at the line, and now he'll get all the way through, down in 1.
Yeah, and that's not a surprise there, but wouldn't be surprised if Nick rather, goes for a switchback eventually. Right now, just not advantageous because he didn't get the run down the back straightaway with that different line he had to take. But Andrew up front, though, he's within 1 car length and looking to dive.
Wants to make that move to the bottom. That is where he has found his success. Does Kyle Trudell alter his line? Will he go lower to try to take that line away for the 88? How much of a fight is he willing to put up here? Does he go on the defensive, or does he try to lock in and drive this race car as hard as he can? Because, I mean, maybe that's what Ferdinand wants him to do. The 88 is exceptionally notorious for being able to conserve equipment. So maybe the 7 can hang on for 5 laps, for 10 laps, but is that car going to be okay in 20 and 25 laps? That's the big question.
Yeah, that's a major thing, and one of the main discussion points for some of the drivers who were asking advice before today's race was, how do you try and set the fastest times while maintaining the tires? It comes down to when you enter on the brakes. Some drivers actually going earlier than you might think. Others who are burning up their equipment quickly are going towards the bottom of the timesheets. We're trying to brake excessively late and try and carry too much speed. So there's that risk, and Kyle looks like he's braking about 10 feet later than Andrew Freenosh in the majority of these times. Andrew's also hitting the brakes a little bit less harder, able to drag them out, while Kyle is going a bit more harder out. That in turn is balancing out the tire heat. And when you think about it, Evan, what causes more heat? The harder tire press. When you're using the harder brakes, it can cause more pressure in that right front tire.
And but you also saw in that shot down the backstretch, you see it there to 4. 3rd and 4th are not that far behind. There can't be any real patience here for Ferdinand as you go on board with Scott McClendon. The car in front, you see the Donnie, that's Daniel Everhart in 3rd. And then the 2 cars even further up the road are your 2 race leaders who have been finding this is very quickly becoming not a 2-car race for the win, but maybe a 4-car race for the win. So if I'm Ferdinand, maybe I would like to sit back, make that 7 tear up his equipment, and then kind of pounce on him later when he's a little bit weaker. But I don't really think you can sit around too much longer and make it pretty. If Everhart and McClendon continue to close, you're going to have to pass sooner rather than later. Now, that's a big if. We'll see if this pace can maintain for all of these cars in the top 4.
I think Connor Horn, especially from the Cup Series side, can attest to that. But it looks like Andrew thinks he's got a run, just couldn't get enough speed to dive into the quarter panel of the 7 quite yet. He's been faster than Kyle for the past 3 laps, so I think he knows he might be able to get the job done and wants to maybe get by quickly, so Daniel Everhart has to deal with Kyle later on instead, but he just hasn't timed it up quite yet.
And for the 88 machine here as well, again, that long game may be the preferred one because on that first run, it was about 40 laps in when he really started to get better than Everhart. And even when Kyle Trudell, who was in 3rd, really dropped off. He hung out at about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds off of the race leaders, and then dropped to 4 seconds off, so much so that Rhett McBride in 4th was actually able to pass him for 3rd. So the 7 really hit a cliff. He cannot afford to do that same thing now inside of the final 30 laps at Homestead, Miami. If he has any hope of topping 2 RSR veterans, 3 for that matter, with Ferdinand, Everhart, and McClendon all stacked up behind him.
Indeed, and they've actually started to pull away from McClendon, in fact, for that battle that was going on for 3rd position. So Daniels turned up the wick, and Andrew got a bit of a better run off of turn 4. Is it going to be enough, though, to make anything happen yet?
We'll see if it's going to come now. It was that first move when he peeked out down the backstretch was very early, almost trying to see, I think, if the 7 would bite and give him that spot. Last time it won, I think, was a lot more serious of a look. as it was a little bit later trying to catch the 7 off. But what Trudell really needs to focus on are his quarter exits. These are long straights here at Homestead, Miami. If you do not get a good run off of the corner, that car can get to your inside, and it can mean trouble. Less than half a car length this time. Looking again. High, now back low. Still not enough, though. And Eberhardt is now on them from third.
And it looks like Kyle's getting very tight now. This is opening up the bottom, trying to play defense last time down the straight.
And there he is to the inside. The challenge for the race lead. Going to come at lap number 98. Ferdinand on the bottom of Trudell. Eberhardt will watch on from third as the 7 car is able to ring it up on the outside. And in a drag race to the line, stay in front just barely by 2/100ths of a second. So the second challenge now on the inside of 1 and 2. Ferdinand again gets about a half a car length through, but the 7 brings it right back on exit. He'll pull his own advantage now to 3.
And right now, Daniel's in the popcorn seat at this point, allowing both of these drivers to just burn up their equipment and be able to save his and then try and take advantage right after that.
The 90 car has options. He can try to make it 3-1 if he wants. I guess if these cars are going at it side by side, they're not going to be running either of their preferred lines. He could sneak to the bottom, or he could sit and wait while they tear each other up. He went way low to the inside. Even Ferdinand kicking the back end out, as we will have 100 laps in the books, this time by 25 to go in the NPHY.org 188. How patient is the 90 going to be? Because Trudell looks very comfortable and confident defending on the outside. He holds Ferdinand off. Here's the counter punch now. Eberhardt, he'll go and take away second.
And that's exactly what Daniel was waiting for. Hope Andrew was able to have to back off, and as soon as he lifted off that gas, knew this is my chance and forced it down there. Andrew gave him the space when he realized what was happening. Now Daniel's got a bit fresher tires from all that side-by-side battling between the 88 and the 7.
If the 90 car is, we stay up in front and to watch this battle for the lead. The 90 not only passed Ferdinand, but he got all the way down to the inside of Trudell at the same time. It didn't really ever look like that twofer was possible, and now that they kind of reset, tucked in line, and tries again, I think Eberhardt's next attempt going to be a lot more convincing, but Trudell does not care that these cars are working on the bottom of the racetrack. He likes that high line. Look at this. He's going to be way up against the outside wall, so much so that Eberhardt almost clears him in the center. He'll squeeze him on exit, but the run is in favor of the 7 car, and Eberhardt a lot more aggressive on that pinch down off of 4 than Ferdinand was.
Almost thought that was a little bit too higher up, but you can see Eberhardt still preferring that bottom line so we can power that gas along to the apex. But again, that straight line speed and the ability to ramp it off the progressive banking is just so advantageous if you can do it right. Daniel might have to try and get clear right here as Kyle still tries up high.
Yeah, he wasn't able to get the run off of the corner, and there is the falter. New race leader once more, Daniel Eberhardt back to the lead at lap number 104. And now it is critical time for both Trudell and Ferdinand. They cannot afford to fight with each other and let that 90 get away, but they are deadlocked side by side down the back as Eberhardt now pulls 2/10.
And Andrew needs to get clear right now. And Kyle's starting to actually pinch him. He wants to fight for the second position, side drafting him.
He's going to pinch the 70 car up, and he's going to do it as well. He saw that little bit more of an aggressive approach by Eberhardt worked for him, but this is desperation for Ferdinand, because now next time by it'll be just 20 laps to go. And is it now the Ferdinand and Eberhardt show? They have both been able to get around the 7 at Trudell, but in all honesty, this 7 car has put up a great fight. He's committed, though, to this top line, and I don't know if it's going to work for him now, as this time threw a little bit lower on the racetrack. Will he get back up there, or is it going to be decided between the 90 and the 88?
I think at this point, with how much the 7 was trying to hold on, and the pace difference already up to about 2/10, I think it's going to be potentially between the 90 and the 88 if it stays green. how it goes down is up to those two drivers, because both of them have had some aggressive battles, and Andrew now, he knows that Daniel was a bit even with him, in fact dead even on the short, but Andrew's quicker on the lawn as they pass by a driver ducking into the pits.
Yeah, Tom Novosad, the lap traffic 34, going to come into the pit lane, and he's actually going to run coming onto pit road. The 34 got the pit road entry, and he'll end up taking a tow to pit road. The actual accident happened on the pit lane, so there was no yellow, but Novosad tried to just get down and out of the way, and he wrecked himself. Let's watch the replay here. You could see the race leaders coming and did the smart thing. He got down to the inside, saw that they were coming, and noticed that they were kind of catching up from behind him. So he figured, all right, well, I'm just going to bring this car down to the pit lane to get all the way out of the way. I think he spent too much time mirror watching to make sure he didn't get in their way, that he didn't slow down in time, and right there, nicked it with the right-hand side of the car.
Yeah, looking at the steering wheel inputs, he didn't realize he was about to clip the barrels whatsoever. I am surprised at that situation there. Just hitting the barrels hard on that right rear tire. It's going to break that toe on the right rear suspension. So if he gets back on the track, it's going to really slow him down overall.
The tough break there for a driver who was still trying to finish in this race. It'll certainly hurt him, and he'll drop basically way down and out of the conversation. As Novosad was still a functioning car, he'll probably hang on to about a P25 or a 26 as he's back out on track already. But more lap traffic now on the horizon. We'll see if these are any less exciting. Galen Gittiman next up. The 94 wants to hold up high, and that works for your leaders who have been on the bottom. But I think that 90 car wasn't quite sure what the 94 was doing, and that small hesitation has closed Ferdinand right back in to within just a car length.
Yeah, that little hesitation gained him another couple 100s. And Andrew, remember though, can get about a few 100s quicker every time by at this point of the run, as we've seen during the first long green flag stint. Just needs to apply the pressure, coming to 15 laps to go.
In third place, Kyle Trudell continues to slip back. So the 70 car again, about the same point in the run where he just didn't have that extra. And the first stint tonight has fallen off to 1.2 seconds back. Scott McClendon may challenge him for fourth shortly. You see the black and green number 22 there. We'll keep you posted if that does turn into a fight anytime soon. But the fight on track right now is the one for the checkered flag. Will we see not only a third different race winner in 3 weeks, but how about just the first new name inside of the top three? Eberhardt trying to close this race out, but he's got his nemesis in Ferdinand bearing down, looking to the inside. He's got the run into turn 4. Does he challenge now into turn 1?
Eberhardt nearly clipped that wall in turn 4 and is actually starting to slip the tires in turn 2. He does have that higher line for the backstretch.
Yeah, I really thought that might have been it, but it just wasn't there. That whole 1 and 2 just didn't put together a good corner, reset, and go at it again. You saw the sparks fly that time as he got right up on the safer barrier. Now with some sparks down the backstretch. So Ferdinand using every single inch of this track make these moves. And it was Ferdinand kind of taking note for the Nani car by being aggressive, by pinching and pushing up on quarter exit when they were trying to get around Trudell to make those moves. So does he try to pull an Eberhardt on Eberhardt, or is the 88 going to try something different to make this happen? Because if he takes him 2 or 3 laps, Justin, to reset every time, then he's got limited opportunities here.
I think for Freenash, he might have to even switch up the line. I'm surprised he hasn't tried to go into the high side. That's at least how the approach might be for some of the drivers. But I think Andrew knows that he prefers that lower line to conserve tires. That's where he's been able to carry the most speed on corner entry to apex, and knows that he can try and outsmart Daniel that way. But the thing is, Daniel knows exactly that, has been trying as soon as he gets right here to run a half car length up, get that run more off the straight, and be able to pull that distance back.
Right on the bumper, tracing his line, this time off of the corner. The clock now ticks down to 11 laps to go. Again, flashing the nose to the inside, but tucking back in line is Ferdinand. Does this get desperate at any point? Do they start to get physical? A little bit of a bobble that time at a 2. Ferdinand is right there, but still the run isn't enough to get him to the quarter panel of the door. So instead, again, he'll get right on the back in the center as we get down to the final 10 laps.
The way it's looking, Andrew's trying to diamond off the corner, just use a little bit out of that progressive banking to get to the bottom. He's got a chance here to get to the bottom.
Finally has the track position down on the inside, challenging for the race win at Homestead. Eberhardt tries to hang on up top. He'll have the run at it too, but not enough to get back by, and it's a dead heat now with a run to 3.
Will Eberhardt pinch him?
Squeezing on through is Eberhardt. The 90 car gets right on the back of Ferdinand. Tries to go for the crossover. Get a nose back to the inside, but it'll be back to the race lead for Andrew Ferdinand. It's his at 117. Here's the counter punch now. Right on each other's door on the inside line as the 90 really tries to scrap and claw, and it's good enough to get even again. Now can he use the inside to take the race lead back when he lost it on the outside down here last time?
Andrew outbraked him though into turn 3. Looks like Eberhardt trying to push hard to get him up the track. Friedo's trying to push him down and a bobble from the 90.
Yeah, they both got a little bit squirrely that time, but the bigger bobble was courtesy of the 90 of Eberhardt. He'll lose that inside positioning. Here's Ferdinand down across the nose and clear for the race lead. Inside of 7 to go. Is that it for Eberhardt?
I don't know yet. It might take a couple laps for him to regroup at this point because right now they're still about dead even. Andrew is a little bit faster with that top line. But if Eberhardt can time up something, he might be able to do something. He's sawing at that wheel as hard as he can. I think trying to get that one last gasp.
And if we'll see, we saw Eberhardt, defend a couple of advances from Ferdinand, and at all of those, the 80 would get to the inside. He would lose that spot, back up, and try it again. And it took him a lap or two to be able to get back up in the bumper. Eberhardt isn't losing any time, but he really needs to be gaining if he doesn't want this to be a one-and-done opportunity.
Yeah, but it looks like Eberhardt gives him the bumper.
I don't know if that's going to be good, though, for the 90's corner exit. He really drove it in there, but he drove it in on exit, so it kind of pushed him wide a little bit. It's going to be a net loss enough that he's still a car length back. But I wonder if that was the 90 trying to give it a little bit too much. We saw Eberhardt, when the 88 was on his bumper, have Ferdinand do similar things, but he kind of took a run at him that time. Maybe tried to loosen him up a little bit, never actually got there, and instead just hurt his own exit. And we'll see now if he can continue to find that little bit of boost in the center in 3 and 4. There it is again. The 90 very good at this corner of the racetrack.
Almost feel like it wasn't intentional. He got such a good run. He had to lift off the gas, had to get off the gas to make sure he didn't tank slap the wall. Eberhardt is going 100% right now in turn 3 and 4. That's his best part of the racetrack. Friedosh is better in 1 and 2 at the moment.
Both of these drivers looking for the white flag for this race to be official. This next time around, we'll take lap number 122 and see 4 to go. You need to see the white flag there for it to be official. Otherwise, a possibility of as many as 3 attempts at a green-white checkered overtime finish. That time, the first time in a while that it's been Ferdinand who gains. He pulls just 2 100ths on him.
Again, Eberhardt had to lift on that front straightaway because he carried so much speed. He nearly tank slapped the wall. Might have burned up what he's had left. It's going to take a little bit of a mistake from the 88 to have a one last gasp and a one last reach to the quarter panel of the 88.
And I wonder if it's going to be a little bit too much, or if he is able to get back, if it is going to be just one final attempt. He is so close to the wall at a 4. Now this time at 3 laps to go from Homestead, hoping that everybody else can keep it on track. There is no traffic in front of them. for about 3/4 of a straightaway, so they'll be able to decide it amongst themselves. Race winner from just last week in Atlanta, Andrew Friedage, or Daniel Eberhardt looking for his first win of the Winter Series. This time by, it'll be Popsicle 6 in the air, 2 more laps to go.
And Eberhardt's really starting to struggle now because the aero push is really factoring in. He's trying to compensate by pushing on these corner entries, but at this point, he needs to try and find a way to get air to the nose to be able to get a run because it's making him squirrely.
And you can see that time Friedage was giving it a little bit extra too. He was right up on the fence in Audi car. His line is good, but it has not been good enough. This is the end of the racetrack that he needs to back it up a little bit so he's not overdriving the exit, and he did close the gap a little bit. It'll be official, white flag in the air.
Eberhardt might have to get something done in turn 3 to have a shot. Needs to be able to get the perfect run here down the back straightaway.
Needs a car length still. A big bobble that time means the momentum's going to be in the favor of the 88 of Friedage as this battle heads to the final quarter. Here's Eberhardt driving it in hard on the white line, but it is going to be just a little bit late now. He'll look to the outside. Neither move are going to work, and 2 in a row. Andrew Friedage, winner at Homestead.
A phenomenal finish, the finish of the season so far. And an absolute battle. My goodness, just 2 100ths of a second or so separating the two. There was a thrilling battle for third, mind you, as well. That came down to 8 1,000ths of a second. A driver's race and a thrilling finish.
Yeah, Trudell able to hang on over McClendon. We thought that maybe that would have been another one that would have changed hands. But I'll tell you what, as soon as Friedage, I mean, even before he actually crossed the finish line, immediately on the radio, thanking and congratulating Daniel Eberhardt for a very hard-fought race. The Nani did everything he could, drove it in hard to the bumper, got close, and it actually, again, with that big advantage that he seemed to have off of 3 and 4, took another peek to the outside, just did not have enough time. Who knows what the story would have been if there was an extra 5 laps sprinkled in there, but it is Friedage leading 72 of the 125 laps, who's now a 2-time winner, and he'll grow his points lead atop Nick Hulslander, who ended up finishing P5 tonight.
Yeah, that was a thrilling run overall with Kyle Trudell also mixed in. It made it one of the best battles in all of real sim racing in 2019, I think you can say, Evan. Just a stellar race and a stellar victory.
We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, we'll talk with your top finishers and get you set for the first road course race of the season. It'll be next week on Monday, December the 23rd from Mid-Ohio. You've been watching the LSR TV's coverage of the 2020 Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth. Post-race action is next from Homestead on the iRacing Esports Network.
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
And back live for the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, where LSR TV's coverage of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series, supporting the Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, continued with tonight's NPHY.org 188. Round 3 of 10 now in the books. Happy that you're still with us, though, and you're home for Sim Racing alongside Justin Prince, myself, Evan Pasocco, and Randy Chennett downstairs as we welcome you back in for some post-race coverage. And first, let's look top to bottom at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Andrew Ferdinand is headed to victory lane for the second time in a row, both on the intermediate racetracks, making it happen all year long on these things in the Cup cars and in the Xfinity cars. And we'll be standing by trackside with not only him, but as well Daniel Eberhardt, who comes home with his first podium of the year. Same with Kyle Trudell, who comes home third. They'll all be with us in just a moment. Scott McClendon comes home P4, and Nick Holslander P5 is the worst he's had all year. So a pretty good start for the 25, but he does lose ground to Ferdinand in the points, courtesy of that win for the 88 car. Sam Nieto finishes 6th, Rhett McBride is 7th, and Jared Mogard in P8. And then a couple of big movers. Ross Cato up 11 to P9, and Eric Stanford gains 17 to round out your top 10.
Brian Chambliss came home in 11th spot, right in front of Steve Durham, who was a plus 12 on the race in his number 10 machine. Bobby Terrell finished 13th, a minus 8. But Chase Kelly, who started shotgun on the field, finishing 14th. John Goodell, he was one of the biggest movers at one point, got caught on the wrong strategy, had to take a wave, finished 19 and a half plus seconds back in 15th. Bobby Croup finished in 16th with Joshua Bayard, in 17th. Sean Kalis in 18th. Steve Sora in 19th. And Kyle Kamer, he was a man inside the top 10 at one point, rounding out the top 20.
Final two cars that finish on the lead lap. Jonathan Lawrence 21st and Steve Cunningham 22nd. The rest are all going to be lappers. Still in it included Galen Gidman 23rd, John Arata in 24th, Todd Novosad 25th, and Michael Kaczynski P26. The rest of the cars were in effect out of this one. Kevin Pearson 27th. Tom Moreno starts off the DNF's P28 with John Fowler 29th. Gael Brooks in 30th. And Andres Nunez in 31st position. That's been a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEG PC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the over 600 iRacers already enjoying an FEG PC. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Go to FEGPC.net and mention code LSRTV10 to get your build quoted today. Let's head down to Homestead Miami Speedway, Victory Lane, where we're stood by with the driver of the 88 machine, Andrew Ferdinand, now back-to-back winner inside of this RSR Icebreaker Winter Series. We're with him now, and Andrew, congratulations on your second win on the intermediates in a row. This one came right down to the wire.
Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun. I can't stress how racing Kyle and racing Daniel and the whole field. That was so much fun out there. Really had to work for it, and I hope we put on a good show because, boy, that was really fun in the car, really competitive, and you had to really drive it, give it all you had there at the end. So really happy to come out with the win and hopefully advance the points lead a little more.
Of course, first caution of the night really threw a wrench into things because it looked like you were obviously on a very different strategy as Daniel outright going for the one stopper. He was probably primed to come back down to the pit lane to make a second and final stop for his own right 10 laps later. But then the yellow comes out and you're trapped at a P9. Everybody pits and you have to kind of do it all over again and race through the field. Just tell us about that process and if those restarts helped or hurt anything late.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out all week what I wanted to do. If I knew it was either going to be 2 or 1 stops. You could barely make it on the 1 stopper. And like this RSR Icebreaker is so different. It's 10 races, total points. So, in my book, I just had the points race. You get a lap led. I was able to stretch it to halfway to get the most laps led. And I knew, probably a top 5, even if we did get passed by that 2 stopper. and I didn't want to get caught with the caution. So I think that was the best call just for points. If we were going for the race win, I definitely would have went for 2, but I felt like there was a lot more risk in that. So that's what kind of played into that. And when that caution came out, I was a little disappointed. I wanted to see. I think Daniel may have been able to get us, but boy, that would have been really fun to see which strategy would have won.
Of course, to be able to get the race win second in a row, and Nick Holslander not that far behind you, but it does break the deadlock at the top of the championship, and you will have officially the solo points lead for the first time of the year. As we go into Mid-Ohio, the road course for this 2020 campaign, and kind of a first here as well for RSR competition. So what's the outlook headed into that lone road race of the year?
I'm probably gonna be leaning on my teammate Kyle there for a lot. I know that's his home track. He's really good there. I know the V7 is gonna be out on Wednesday for these cars, so that's gonna be interesting. I've been running a lot of V8 supercars, and it's definitely different. If you can feel tire wear if you spin them, and it definitely hurts you late in the run. So if it's anything like those V8s, I'm excited for it. I really got to learn the track. I haven't done a lot of racing there, so optimistically excited for it, and we just look forward to it.
We know that all year you have been able to get the job done on this kind of a racetrack in the Cup car and now in the B car as well, as you've got 2 in a row for the Icebreaker Winter Series from Victory Lane. Who makes it happen for you?
Got to say thanks to you guys for broadcasting, all the admins in this league, all the drivers. Loved racing with everybody tonight. We kept it clean. I got to apologize for Scott. I know I scared him a few times, so I appreciate him racing me clean. Everybody over at No Name Motorsports. Everybody over there, Dave for bringing me on board with this team. Wouldn't have made it as far without him. All the fans, and I think that's about it.
We appreciate you being a part of RealSimRacing and giving us some time here post-race, Andrew. Again, congrats on the win.
Thanks so much, guys.
Race winner tonight in the NPHY.org 188. And flip side of that was Daniel Eberhardt, so close to a first of the year. Justin here, trackside with him.
Yes, indeed, Daniel. A heck of a battle between you and Andrew up at the front. What's going through your head now after such a thrilling battle for the race win? A classic here in RSR competition.
I'm just really tired of finishing second. I know it's Andrew and he's my teammate, and I'm not going to go off in the corner and bump him up the track or anything like that. I'm going to run him just as hard as I can cleanly, but it's just one that got away, and I hate Homestead, and I've never been a fan of that track, and just it feels like you go over the seams and the car just gets loose, and it's like the virtual sun just hits the exit of each corner of turn 2 and turn 4, and it makes it real slick every time you come off the corner, and Andrew just has it figured out. He has it figured out in everything he runs on this sim. I don't understand how he does it, but if he's got any hacks, I wish he'd give me some.
That would be interesting to see how that... Either way, let's go to the next question to get back into focus here. With this car, what did you need to do to try and keep on battling? Because it was interesting how the strategy was going to work out if it stayed green. You were trying the 2-stop, Andrew the 1-stop. Your thoughts on the 2 strategies?
I wish it would have went green. I felt like I was going to be right there at him and have fresh tires. I did that 2-stop deal, and when he was sitting there running for that 1-stop, he made his pit stop, and he was only 12 seconds ahead of me from me putting him a lap down. And when we went through the corner and the caution came out, I just looked up at the charts, and I seen that he was only 13 seconds ahead, so I felt like I was going to catch him, because I don't think he was going to pass me for the lead, but he wasn't going to put me a lap down. So I felt like I had a good shot at it.
I think both of us here in the broadcast booth did too, and Andrew said the same thing as well. But there's going to be a couple different interesting things when it comes to next week's race. First, new tire model. V7 is making its way to the Xfinity cars as of this Wednesday, as Andrew noted. Your thoughts on the V7 tire model first off?
I really don't know. I don't race a lot anymore. The only time I really get on is just to mess around, probably from about 10 o'clock till about 11 o'clock, but at night. And I ran one race, and that's either in a dirt late model or anything, so I don't know. I don't really know anything about how the tire model. I hear a lot of people complain, and I hear a lot of people like it. I just want something to be realistic. I want the car to be as ill handling as you can get it, like this Xfinity car is, but I mean, every other car you drive now, it's not like that. So the Xfinity car is just the funnest car to drive on the game right now, and I hope it just stays the same.
Second question, we're going left and right racing as well with the new tire model, so a double whammy. Your thoughts heading into our first and only road course date on the schedule?
I'm pretty excited. Andrew was telling you just a few minutes ago we run the supercars, and I've been running them. I can't finish one, but I like road course racing. It's it's a lot of trickery to it, and it takes a special kind of talent running left and right. And I think the guy to beat next week will be one of our teammates, Kyle Kamer.
Going to be interesting to see how Kyle does as well. Thank you for noting that. But is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, I want to thank all my teammates. They're just great people to be around. Kyle Kamer, Andrew, obviously, Eric Stanford, Galen Gidman, Ross Cato, Stephen Durham, Dave Washington. That's not here, obviously. He's been like a dad to me on this game, and also I got to thank my now fiance. She isn't my girlfriend anymore, and I got to thank the good Lord above.
Thank you very much for the time. Congratulations on a hard-fought second.
Thank you, Justin.
That was Daniel Eberhard coming home second tonight. Evan, back over to you.
We'll continue down to post-race here and down the pit lane to catch up with the driver of the number 7 car. Kyle Trudell comes home at a podium tonight at Homestead. We're trackside with him now. And Kyle, congratulations. First top 5 of the season. But, I mean, it has been a very good start for you. And tonight to be able to build upon that, almost going for the race win, put you head-to-head with some of the most veteran drivers in this series.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate them. How quick they are, and what I can learn from them, as well as how cleanly they race. We were pretty close there on numerous occasions, but it was a lot of fun.
Obviously, this race in the first half, very different than the second half of this race. It looked like it was going to be a fuel strategy game, the 2-stop or the 1-stoppers, and how it would play out from there. But instead, we get a yellow. Daniel Eberhard ends up as race leader. We thought, well, that might be it, because he's in the race lead, and Ferdinand is back in 9th, and weren't certain if he was going to be able to make that jump. And next thing we know, it's a 7 car storming to the race lead. What was going right then, and what did you need more of to be able to close this one out?
Yeah, I was on that 2-stop strategy myself, and I figured I'd be okay there. But yeah, once that caution came out, just kind of reset the field. I was a little bit lucky to that cycled through, because I was 4th at that point. So the car felt really good on that restart. So I had a lot of grip, and I was just able to find what I needed on the low side of the racetrack right there. And might have burned my stuff up doing it, but at the time it felt good.
And of course, I mentioned a first time at a podium this season, but if I'm correct, looking at the numbers, you're one of only 4 drivers who have now top 10s in all 3 races to kick off this 2020 Icebreaker Winter Series campaign. How does this good jump allow you to build upon to the rest of the season? Still 7 races to go with a road race coming up next.
Definitely helps. I'm striving for some consistency. These races are always so tough to finish. You never know what can happen, but I'm always just striving for consistency. I feel like that works as far as points go. So that's the goal.
We look forward to seeing how the rest of this season will play out, and if tonight's an indication that 7 car is going to be up in the mix much more. But we'll let you jet out of here. I know it was a long, hard-fought night of action to Kyle. Before we do, anybody want to say hi to?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to my wife out there in Hawaii. She's on vacation for a week. And you guys for broadcasting, this is one hell of a show to watch week in and week out. It's my first season with LSR TV and this Icebreaker series. I'm looking forward to the Cup side here coming up in February. Hopefully I can make most of those races on Mondays, and yeah, really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I'll tell you what, we're happy to have you with us here running inside of RealSimRacing on LSR TV. Kyle, again, congratulations on a P3 tonight, and we look forward to seeing what that 7 car's gone in it for the rest of the year.
Cheers. Thank you.
P3 finisher tonight, and again, a career high there for Kyle Trudell. Big thanks to he, Daniel Epperhart, and Andrew Fernidaj for talking with us post-race. Again, it'll be Fernidaj to the top of the championship standings. Hulslander will drop back a little bit. Malik Ray will take a big hit by missing this race. Good results for Nieto and Trudell. Thomas George missing this one. He'll also drop down. So that's kind of what your top 5 will look like. Of course, points not yet official, as everything needs to be reviewed post-race and whatnot. But a very interesting race, Justin. Thought it was going to be a fuel one. Had kind of settled into that and was very intrigued to see who was going to be the one that made the right call, and instead turned into one of the more exciting races we've seen in some time, with 3 drivers, Fernidaj, Eberhard, Trudell, all over each other there late in the race, and of course then turning into that 2-car tango between the 88 and the 90.
Yeah, just an absolute thrower of a battle. It's going to be interesting, again, what happens when we go left and right racing, because a new tire model for the drivers to deal with, as well as the challenges of, well, Mid-Ohio. It's a challenging road course for these cars, and there's a lot of passing opportunities, but a lot of places where there could be danger at any single point of a turn. It's going to be a wild one, to say the very least, next week.
And of course, that's interesting because when we created the schedule for this Icebreaker Winter Series, we asked the drivers, what tracks did you want to see and what road course racing did you want to do? And the oval that they really wanted to see was Rockingham. So Rockingham, the 8th race on the schedule. If you're not familiar with the schedule, coming up for the next 7, Mid-Ohio, Iowa, Chicago, Auto Club, Rockingham, Talladega, and ISM. So they wanted a Rockingham. They got that one. And the road course race they wanted was Mid-Ohio. Waited some of the other options. Watkins Glen, of course, Road America. Very well known and kind of a staple on an Xfinity calendar. But I think we're really going to look forward to Mid-Ohio because first time in a long time, LSR TV will bring the virtual cameras out to that racetrack. And I know some of the drivers have been poking away at it. You heard from Fernidaj, even Justin, that he hasn't quite had a ton of practice. I'm no good, but it's fun, and I think I'm even going to hit the racetrack just a little bit just to get an idea of what these drivers will be dealing with come next Monday night.
I mean, I've done the same thing as well with that racetrack. It is a fun track, I have to admit that, because it's not to where it's excessively difficult, but it's not easy, to say the least. You're really trying to battle the race car a lot of the times, but it's also a fun type of battling. You know what I mean? Where you're trying to use the throttle and use the balance of the brakes and whatnot throughout the circuit. I think we're going to see some very, very energetic drivers after the post-race, happy with how the race goes, I hope. It should be an interesting one.
It'll be a ton of fun, and anytime you get a stock car on a road course, you're not going to want to miss that one. But until then, that's it for us here tonight from Homestead, Florida. So on behalf of our entire team at LSR TV, encourage you to stay up with us by logging online to livesimracing.com and by being a part of everything online with social media. You can like us at facebook.com/LSR TV official and by following us on Twitter at LSR TV for more. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince, and our producer, Randy Cheneth, want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Fernidaj, a back-to-back winner, as we get set to return after a week off. It's been a long week here on LSR TV and the network. Catch you next time out on Monday, December the 23rd from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. That race and every race of the 2020 RealSimRacing Icebreaker Winter Series can be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, we say good night from Homestead, where it's Fernidaj on top for the second week in a row.